This is 5 Live Sport.
Tuffers and Vaughan's Cricket Show.
Welcome along to Tuffers and Vaughan. Lots has happened in the month since our last show, so plenty to discuss over the next hour, including what's been a brilliant edition of the IPL. No English representation in tomorrow's final, Michael, but there have been some standout performances.
Yeah, the top two teams that have made it to the final, Mumbai and Delhi. Jofra Archer's been on fire. He's got 20 wickets. Sam Curran, he's done well for Chennai with 13. The England captain Morgan with 418 runs. But Johnny Bairstow, he had a good time, but then was dropped. Yeah, so we've got no representation in the final, which is disappointing.
Tough as England's men off to South Africa week today for some white ball action. So what are you most excited about in those two series?
Well, I think they're both going to be absolute belters. South Africa seem to be getting their act in order with the likes of Rabada and Nortje. And, well, England are just so full of pace and power. They seem to have it all covered. Really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great contest.
Absolutely. Now, the boys have also picked their England T20 side that they think should start next year's World Cup, except that Tuff has got this wrong and thought we were talking about the series in South Africa.
I've run out of paper. There's so many names on it.
So you've done a quick reselection. We will be talking about that. We'll talk about the fact that Virat Kohli's taking paternity leave. That's not gone down well among some Indian fans. And we'll also be talking about Jasprit Bumrah and Chris Gayle.
Tuffers and Vaughan's Cricket Show.
On 5 Live.
So Tuffers and Vaughan talking cricket for the next hour here on 5 Live Sport. We are, just a few days into lockdown 2. Tuffers,
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
I've painted the shed.
Oh,
Nice.
I've already got. It's quite a big shed though, Mike. It took me a little bit longer than I anticipated.
I think I saw you post that, didn't you?
Yes,
is that right? Yes.
I painted it a nice sort of Cotswoldy grey blue. It's come out quite nice, but I think it's going to need a couple more coats. So
But
it's
you
just
don't
as
live in
well
the
we've got a bit of time.
Cotswolds. You don't live in the Cotswolds, Phil.
No, but it's quite a nice colour, isn't it?
Nice,
It's that sort of like dusky sort of blue. It's very modern. It's
Can I
nice.
ask, brush, roller or spray on?
Or someone else.
Yeah. Well, I did try to get someone else in, but Dawdy wouldn't let me. She said, "No, you got nothing to do. You can do it." So I went with the big brush. And it's going to need another coat, though. It's going to need another coat. I'm going to have to wait till the sun comes back. I think that's my excuse. I'm going to have to wait till spring.
It's not easy, is it, painting?
No,
It's not easy. That wood outside, it's easy to miss bits.
It is. It's all in preparation, Mike. You've got to prepare.
Yes, I've noticed you're starting to wear glasses as well, Phil. Is that an indication of what went wrong?
And
Yes, I
quick one
painted
to you.
next doors.
A quick one to you, Michael, about your football team.
Yeah, the manager, Gary Monk,
Monk's
looks like he's left. I'm not surprised, to be honest. They got 6 points back last week. They won a game. They drew a game at home to Millwall. But I'm not surprised. I think it's been a whisper around Essex, Sheffield, for a few weeks that he might be on his way. So, I'm not too surprised.
Coming up on the show tonight, Graham Thorpe joining us as England prepare for their white ball series in South Africa. We'll hear from Rohit Sharma ahead of tomorrow's IPL final. We'll talk Chris Gayle, who achieved an absolutely extraordinary milestone during the tournament, and we'll ask if Jasprit Bumrah is the best all-format bowler in the world at the moment. We want you to get in touch with the show, of course. You can email us at tuffersandvaughan@bbc.co.uk. And I don't know whether you saw this. Jofra Archer has launched his own JA22 brand. I don't know whether it's going to be JA22 or whether it's Jazz, because actually the way you write it.
Couldn't it? If it's a little bit of writing goes sort of in there, it could be. I don't know what's he flogging.
Well, this is the question. We don't know but there is going to be a merchandise collection dropping soon, apparently, according to his Twitter account.
So I reckon, Ellie, he will have JA22 on the back of his shirts. That's what they do, don't they? Some of these sports stars now they have their brand on the back of shirts. Yeah, what do you say he's selling? Has he got a range of kit? Or
could be going into the jewellery business. Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, he likes a gold chain. He's got a couple now, hasn't he?
Yeah,
could be like that.
So look, if you want to tell us, I'm talking to you two obviously, but also the listener as well. What piece of merchandise would you most associate with a cricketer, past or present? So I don't know about. I was thinking about this actually because somewhere hidden away in the top of a cupboard, I've got one of those white brimmed floppy sun hats, which I bought at a cricket ground somewhere years ago because it was one of those days when I'd gone along and it was just too hot, and I thought, why have I not brought a hat? How many times do you think, why have I not brought a hat? So I bought one of these white floppy sun hats, and it's got David Gower just kind of embroidered, his signature embroidered into the side.
Well, the famous one, of course, is the Richie Rich one, isn't it?
Richie Rich, yeah, I've got one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. That's
and the Chappell brothers in Australia, didn't they have a similar range?
That's right. Greg Chappell had one like that.
And of course, the Great White Shack. Greg Norman.
Yeah, I know.
Greg
brought
Norman,
out a hat,
yes.
didn't he? And Boyks, I think, brought out a set of hats, didn't he?
He's got a straw hat. Ellie, can I ask you what your brand's going to be called?
Well, my brand?
Yes.
Well, I'm not an ex-cricketer, so I don't count in
well,
this.
we need you to have a brand. Come on,
All
let's
right,
get Ellie a brand.
Yeah.
I'll think about it in the meantime. But all right, so have you ever had...
Ellie's hat, perhaps. Keep
The
it
trouble is
simple.
that I've got a very big head. You might not know this, but I have got a very big head, so I look like a mushroom with a gigantic white sun hat.
You don't look like you've got a big head.
No, oddly enough, I
It's
do.
very nice.
So,
It's a
but-
very neat head.
Did you two ever have any kind of sort of branded stuff that with Tuffers branded or Vaughan
Well,
branded?
bits and pieces. I've been giving it a little bit of thought. They used to actually pay me not to use their gear, the cricket manufacturers and what have you. But I'm going to go for Tuffers tipple. Simple as that. Tuffers tipple.
Yes, alcohol's never too far away there, Philip.
I guess IPA or a wine or something.
The closest I ever got, I guess, was when I used to have that barnet on my head, and people, I guess, could go and get their own barnet. Have a bit of a squirrel pot on top of your head, couldn't you? I don't have that these days, but I guess, just a bit of a squirrel on the head. The squirrel's gone. That was old school. Yeah, that went a few years ago, Phil. That was far too itchy.
Right, Tuffers and Vaughan at bbc.co.uk if you want to get in touch on email as well. But look, let's talk about some serious cricket, because next week, this time next week, in fact, England's men fly to South Africa for a 6-match white ball tour. So there'll be 3 T20s starting on November the 27th and then 3 ODIs starting on December the 4th. So a few headlines from the squad announcements. We've got Ben Stokes, Jofra Archer, Sam Curran in the T20 squad, but not in the ODIs. But what caught your eye particularly, Michael, looking at these squads?
I guess Topley making it ahead of David Willey. David Willey against Ireland in the summer. Did a great job. I think England and Owen Morgan, Chris Silverwood, the management have decided that they want that little bit of extra pace, that extra height. For so long, England have just kind of picked players and that packed the bat in, and Willie would have obviously packed the bat in more than Topley. But that was a little bit of an eye opener for me. Delighted for Topley. I think he's a good bowler, but disappointed for David Willey, because in the summer, he did everything that was asked of him. And that's all you can do.
Is he fully fit?
I've not heard that he's not. Someone may tell us otherwise, but you can only do, when you get your opportunity in the side, what you can do, and he did as well as he possibly could have done against Ireland. And for him to have been left out, look, he may have a niggle. I've not heard that he has, but I think he was disappointed to have been left out.
Yeah, he's done well. I mean, I think he was injured for a long time, Rhys Topley, wasn't he? He had a very bad injury, but it was an unfortunate stage of his career, because he really was starting to sort of like cement his place a bit, wasn't he, in that sort of one-day side or one-day set-up for England. So good to see him back.
No Joe Root in the T20 side. So are we now going to say that Joe Root will not play in the World T20, the T20 World Cup this time next year in India?
Ellie, it surprises me. I can only think that they're doing it because they want the England Test captain to have a little bit of space away from being on tour all the time. When you think about it, in a year's time, it's the Ashes. And in England, rightfully so, over the last 2 years, have been building towards trying to make sure that they arrive in Australia with a fully fit a team that's got a great chance of potentially getting those Ashes back. The last 2 times there, they've been hammered. And I just wonder whether that is in the back of Ed Smith's mind and Chris Silverwood's mind, is just to give Joe a little bit of a time out. I personally would have him in my team. In the T20 World Cup that England got to the final last time in India, he was that glue. I think if you watch the IPL, I mean, obviously there's some power hitters and some strikers at the top of the order. There's some power, particularly in the Mumbai team at number 5 and 6 in Pollard and Pandya. But every team needs a little bit of glue. And I think Joe Root, like Kane Williamson shows for the Sunrisers, Suryakumar Yadav for Mumbai, you need a player that can just be that consistent glue in the middle. Also playing in Indian conditions. Again, you go back to the last T20 World Cup over there, Joe Root's offspin caused a big shock in that final against West Indies. He was used, he got 2 wickets. So I am surprised. And he can come back in. I don't think, Elliot, at this stage, his name has been completely scrubbed off the lift for the World Cup. I think they're just trying other options. And I think in the back of their mind, they really are making sure that the England Test captain is rested up for those Ashes next year.
I know what you're saying about the glue, and especially in India, where the wickets might be turning, it's very difficult to go out there and just smash balls for 6 when the ball's turning both ways. You do need someone to knock it around. But having then seen this IPL, do you think that the sort of the spot for the accumulator or the glue is almost then gone out of IPL cricket? Has it moved up another level, do you think?
No, I don't think it has. I think you need consistent players. There was a few games at the start of the tournament in Sharjah, the postage stamp venue, where big scores were being hit regular over 200. Away from Sharjah, 170s, 180s were around a par score, which, Joe Root's a player that can easily get a team to that score. You only have to look at what he did for Yorkshire when he went back to play for Yorkshire at the end of the season. Very consistent, pretty much every single time he went out to bat. He got his 50s at a strike rate of over 140, 150. Give me that consistent player all day long. I mean, the problem England has, they've got so much in terms of options. You've got David Malan, who was, I don't know if he's still the number 1 T20 player in the world. He was on fire. And you've got Johnny Bairstow, you've got Jason Roy. Alex Hales can't even get into that team. You've got Joss Buttler that open. You've got Ben Stokes that's opened in the IPL. That's given England another kind of thought, potentially, of having a left-hander at the top of the order in Ben Stokes. I don't think they'll go with that. But England have got so many options. But for me, if Joe Root's fit and firing, I personally would have him in that 11, particularly with the World Cup being in India.
Do you think that's the end for Alex Hales then, do you think now?
Yeah. Under Owen Morgan, I think that's it, yeah. I just don't see any way back. I've listened to a lot of Owen's interviews. He's very strong. The word trust comes out on a number of occasions, and Alex Hales broke that trust, and I just don't think he's the kind of character now. I think if he'd going to bring him back in, I think he would have done it probably in the summer. Yeah. The fact that he didn't do that, I think Alex Hales' time with England, unfortunately for him, while Owen Morgan is the leader, I just don't think it's one that's going to bring Alex Hales back into the England team.
Okay, I hear what you're saying there, Mike. But then, from your standpoint, do you think England would be a better side with Alex Hales in it? Yes or no?
I think they can do without. But if a Johnny Bairstow got injured, I personally would want Alex Hales at the top of the order. Okay. I think he's that. While ever Bairstow, Roy, Buttler, David Malan's fit, I think England have got so much that they're not going to miss him. But if one of those two at the top get injured, I certainly would think that England could do with Alex Hales.
Just a quick thought about the fact that Joe Root doesn't really play franchise cricket at all these days. I think he had a stint with Sydney Thunder in 2018-19, didn't do brilliantly. Great, never played IPL. Do you think actually that in a way, the franchise leagues have taken T20 to a different level, and if you're not part of one of those franchise leagues, you're not playing with the very best?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, the IPL in particular gets a huge amount of attention. It's a great tournament, but there is some outstanding play, but there's also some garbage. It's not all brilliant. Just because you're playing in an IPL team doesn't mean that you're, an incredible cricketer. I watch pretty much every single game and see 7 out of the 11 playing and think, magnificent, all of them. And then you always look at 4 and go, not the greatest of standards. The same with the Big Bash. The Big Bash is very similar. You get games in the Big Bash which are fantastic, but some that are very, very ordinary. So I don't think it's the be-all and end-all the franchise game, but obviously the profile and what it brings to you as a player, particularly the IPL, the profile that pretty much the whole world in the last 6 weeks is, if you're a cricket fan and a cricket lover, that's all you've been talking about. So I think particularly this year, because there's been no other cricket going on at this stage, I think this has been a good IPL for players to be in, because it's kind of put you right. Look at Jofra's bowling over the last few weeks. He's just been the talking point of many TV stations, radio shows in terms of cricket. So it's been a great time for an individual to have a real quality IPL over the last 6 weeks. So I guess if Joe Root had been in there and flying and playing nicely, England might have had their hand forced to pick him for the T20s.
Yeah. Look, let's bring in England's assistant coach, Graham Thorpe. Good evening, Graham.
Hi there, Ellie.
Nice to talk to you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very
Yeah,
well.
no,
Thorpe.
Hello, Phil. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Graham.
Hi, Gray. Well, how come we can't see you? We're on Zoom. Where are you? We can't see you.
Well, I'm in Loughborough. I'm doing a little bit of work and doing a bit of training with a few of the guys over the next few days.
How's that
Who
going,
have
mate?
you got there?
I've got Dom Sibley, Zach Crawley, Joe's up tomorrow, Joe Root, a lot of the white ball lads who are not in the IPL have been doing some profiling and some fitness stuff, and we've had some of the lads in the nets as well today, in the marquee at Loughborough.
Oh, so you actually got them on grass nets outside, but obviously
Yeah.
the marquee. But how are those wickets playing in November?
They're very good, actually. Very good, and hopefully by the time, with some of the Red Bull players as well, by the time it gets to the back end of December, they'll be turning square ready for Sri Lanka.
I've had some great parties in marquees.
In the past.
Have you been drinking, Phil?
Well, I've never played any cricket in them, I must admit. But very good.
What's the difference between a marquee and an indoor net?
I don't know.
Anyway, how is everybody? Because you've had a few people there who presumably will have had a little bit of a rest. Because there seems to be a real difference between the players who are playing up until the middle of September, finally against Australia in that series, and then they've managed to have a little bit of a rest. But then you've got quite a lot of you've got Stokes, Archer, Butler, Curran, the Currans that we've talked about, who have just kind of gone straight from the English summer into the IPL, and they must be exhausted.
Bubbled out.
Well, obviously we go on next Monday to South Africa. So we've got the T20s. So if you look at the team, that's probably, or the squad, that's probably our strongest squad we can put out for that. And then some of the guys are resting during the 50 over sort of tournament over in South Africa. And you're right, there's lots of cricket, a totally different environment for the players and everybody to cope with. And I suppose from a selectorial point of view, probably those ones who they feel have had a long spout of cricket, they'll probably been chatting to them and work out whether it's time that they have a break and come out and freshen up.
South Africa look like they've got their act together a little bit, Graham. Should be a good series. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah. We won the T20 series over there 2-1, but it was very tight last time, and similar with the 50 over tournament as well. So we know they're always a tough side to play against, but we're confident in the players which we've got. And the direction which we're going in as well. They're, as you say, you've seen the guys who have been playing in the IPL. They've got some brilliant experience, probably the most matches collectively which England players have played since the tournament started. So great to see the guys which have been in good form. People like Sam Curran as well, getting great experience over there as well. Jofra's been in great form over there, firing away. Morgs as well, captain Calcutta. So lots of good things for the England players, and they'll be ready to go for South Africa as they're playing. And obviously we've got a few coming into that squad, likes of Reece Topley coming back into it as well, Sam Billings, David Milan, those guys who are coming back in fresh, having not played so much.
Thorpe, how are the players? We're all around the bubble in the summer, and it was difficult, and we were all in the media section, amazed at how well the players played throughout the whole summer. But how are they as people when they've had a little break, they're now back? Are they really excited and itching to go again, knowing that it will be another bubble? Well,
as I said there, Vaughan, you've got some players who are coming back into it, who are trying to break into that 11. And you might look at it and say how many spots are really up for grabs if everybody's fit and firing. But in terms of how they are in the environments which they've been playing in, look, there's an element of it. It's the jobs which we do, It's a very different environment, though, and I think that everyone's quite aware of that. And I think our environment is actually quite open in terms of how they're actually coping as well. And I don't think that any of our players or any of our coaches or backroom staff would be afraid to say how they're feeling and if they're coping with the environments they're in.
Do you have to have you put anything, have you put more tennis tables in there or something, you know what I mean? How, is there anything
There's
special?
There's a limit to how much table tennis somebody
exactly.
can play, Phil.
I mean, some of these guys will just have gone from bubble to bubble to bubble to bubble. I mean, how do you keep them motivated?
Well, you have to pick your hobby, Phil.
Yeah.
It's either darts, cards, pool, Formula One, basketball.
Yeah. So something's never changed.
What would you play, Phil? What would your one be?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. Perhaps I might go for darts.
He was quite good at the table tennis, I should say, Thorpe, when we were particularly at Old Trafford in the Old Trafford bubble there.
My ping pong's come on, I tell you.
Tuffers used to be good at shove halfpenny.
Penny up the wall.
I think Andy Zaltzman brought one of those games along, didn't he, at one stage? But just going back to Jofra Archer, who I think has spent more days in a bubble than any other cricketer in the world this year, going all the way back to July. And he said that he's bought himself a calendar just to cross the days off and feel like the days are going faster. And the point that he makes is that, because, I mean, he's been in a very nice hotel in Dubai with Rajasthan Royals. But he said that one of the things that he's found most wearing is not so much that, but just the fact that there have been no crowds. And he says that that's probably most of the excitement out of the game. Yeah.
That's and you're right in terms of the standard of cricket we saw this summer. Because people are professional sportsmen and they're competitive, they want to do well. But without crowds, of course it makes a difference. I mean, the other thing is obviously it is very different in these environments, because normally if you were playing in England, you could go out, you could have dinner in the evening, you could invite some family members up, you could see them, you can go back on tour as well, you can have family come out. Those things are very different right now. So it does put a different type of pressure onto a player, which I think that the management around the players are very well aware of as well. And so that's why that constant communication with our players is very important about how they're actually feeling, how they're coping. That's the one good thing about the environment we're in.
We were wondering what Jofra Archer's merchandise, but it might be a Jofra calendar. He might have his own calendar. There you go. You never know. He might be crossing himself off every day.
Thorpe, I was reading an interview with Mark Saxelby. He once was the masseuse. I'm sure he still does a little bit, but he's more than that, isn't he? In this team bubble. Yeah. Look, I mean, he does. He's almost like he's a go-to for the players as well in terms of his role. So I mean, and that's a big part of everything in terms of around the players. You know, the support which you give to them. And likewise for everybody in that environment, Vaughanie, it's making sure that you're able to keep your spark going, as well as being able to recognise when players may be having a bit more of a struggle within the environment as well. And it's trying to recognise all those things so that we're able to cope with that as a team, and that you're able to put your hand up. You're not afraid to say if things you're not feeling so good during a period of on tour, and someone like Sachs is brilliant at recognising that as well within the players. Yeah, a top guy in the team. Just on the team, Thorpe, it's always exciting. When we've been around the blocks a bit, when you see young talent come in and do well. Mm. You know, the likes of Sibley, Crawley. I know Ollie Pope's got an injury, but he looks a high-class player. How rewarding is that, for you as a coach, when you see these players come through? Oh, they're a very good bunch to work with. We've got very good competition, actually, I would say, in all our squads, which is a natural motivator. As you know, when you've got competition and people are trying to fight for places as well, that gives them an extra motivation as well. But they're very hard work. I think they understand the level where
they all need to get to if we're going to challenge for world tournaments in one-day cricket, and also if we're going to be able to compete for the Ashes in Australia and to compete to do well in Asia as a test side. So they're very well aware of the standard where they're at now, but also where they know they have to get to if we're going to win abroad and actually continue to compete and get to finals and win finals in one-day cricket.
Great to talk to you, Graham. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the show tonight.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Take care. Enjoy your
the marquee, great.
Yes.
Yeah, when you think about marquees, you do think about nice glass of
Weddings.
champagne, don't you?
Henley.
Yeah. Weddings, best man speeches.
It is tough,
Not
though. I
bowling
mean, some of
machines.
these guys have just gone. I mean, as you said, we just touched on it there. We were in the bubble, weren't we? But these guys are just like endlessly in bubbles now. As you say, Jofra Archer. I mean, no wonder he's sort of like, it's almost like being in like a prison sort of sentence almost, isn't it? Crossing off the days till I'm free sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
Must be
also,
very difficult.
there are players that do need a crowd. I mean, I'm delighted that Jofra's spoken out and said, look, I need that buzz and energy of the crowd.
Yeah.
He's bowled incredibly well without it.
Yeah.
And there will be players that need that crowd. There'll be also some players that actually are doing better without the crowd. They like the quiet and they can just get on and play the game without any kind of external pressures from people shouting or the noise. But I would say that the real superstars, that they need that little bit of extra, don't they?
That's why you
bit
do
of extra
it,
buzz,
Mike.
the cheer, the
That's why you do
singing,
it, isn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah, that's why you do
And I'm
it.
assuming, so the kind of the background noise that we've been getting, if you've been watching the IPL and you've got that background kind of constant hum of kind of crowd noise, but I don't know whether the players are getting that or that's just on the TV.
I'm not
because-
sure.
I don't know.
Is it
I'm
being
not too
played
sure.
in? I think that
Because
in
it's
some
intensely
circumstances-
irritating on the TV, in my view. But but then maybe better than silence. Look, I wanted to talk to you about this and get your thoughts on this, guys, because it's emerged today that Virat Kohli is going to miss 3 of the 4 tests on the winter tour of Australia to be at the birth of his first child. I think it's due in January. Mixed response, I think it would be fair to say, from Indian fans on social media. This one from somebody called Win-Win Ashwin. Why even bother to go for one test? Best skip the whole series. Indranil says, so disappointing. Dhoni didn't go home for his baby. Sachin came back for the team in spite of his father's loss. I am not happy by this decision. And Abhinav says, playing for India should be more important than everything. He should understand this responsibility. It's a big call, isn't it, Virat Kohli making this call, saying, because of course he could go back and join the tour, but he'd have to quarantine for another 2 weeks as soon as he got back to Australia.
Yeah, and I think that's probably part of his decision to missing the 3 games, because he would know that by the time he's got home and come back and quarantine, he's probably missed the 2 games anyway. So it doesn't surprise me with Virat Kohli. Doesn't surprise me in this world either. I certainly won't be criticising someone for going back to be at the birth of the first child. It's one of the best things that he will ever be involved in. So I understand also those that criticise, and particularly in India, the passionate supporter won't quite see through the decision he's made. But no, I'm not going to criticise him for what he's doing.
What do you think, Phil?
Well, no, me neither. When we were playing, when I was playing anyway, we weren't allowed family over for long tours. We'd be on tours 3.5 months, 4 months, no wives, no girlfriends, no family. No one went back. If babies were born and things like that. And I think some of those guys then looking back, with the benefit of hindsight, do actually then feel a little bit cheated. Every time you represent your country, it's a massive, massive feeling. It's as simple as that. But I mean, if you miss a couple of tests to go and see the birth of your first child, there are certain things that I think perhaps outweigh scoring a century for your country. Or
One thing's for sure is, Elliot, it gives them so much less of a chance of winning over there. He has an incredible record in Australia. The Aussies do fear him. He is the one player. I mean, Pujara's got a great record there as well, but Virat Kohli can do things that not many other players can do. So you'd have to say that Australia, from that decision, are clear favourites to go on and win that series.
I mean, it's a very personal thing, isn't it? It's a very personal thing. Simple as that.
But Virat
So
Kohli's different. I mean, and you're absolutely right, and I don't think any of us would criticise him for 1 second. But Virat Kohli is he's kind of like a special figure in world cricket, isn't he? He's the biggest name in world cricket, and he has got this pressure on him because he is so important, Michael, as you've just highlighted, to that Indian team.
Yeah, I mean, the other way of putting it would be just to miss the whole series, so you don't even play that first test. But he is a superstar. The fact that he is Virat Kohli, you actually look at what he does in T20 cricket, actually, in terms of leadership and captaincy. I'll say here, I don't think he's a great T20 captain.
Ooh.
I honestly don't. I look at him with the Indian team, the Royal Challengers Bangalore, never won it, never got close. This was probably the year that he thought he had a chance. But not many will say it. Not many will actually say that Virat Kohli isn't a great T20 captain. I don't think he is, and I think Indian cricket aren't. Particularly the leaders there, they're like statesmen, aren't they? And Virat's not going to give up. One of the kind of leadership roles where you think of England. Owen Morgan's the white ball captain, Joe Root's the test captain. You look at what happens in Australia with Aaron Finch, Tim Payne. Many other countries are splitting the captaincy roles because it's so much work. It's so hard to do all three. Rohit Sharma, for me, is a better captain in T20 cricket. And India would be better with him as the leader in T20 cricket, because I just think he just sees T20 cricket faster and better. Virat, the batsman, is still one of the top 3 players in the world in T20 cricket, the best player in the world across all the formats. But as a leader, if it wasn't Virat Kohli, I think more people would have been questioning his leadership in T20 cricket.
Really interesting. And actually, we should mention as well, Michael, because part of the reason we're talking about, fatherhood during a test match, because this is what happened to you, didn't you? When was it your firstborn arrived?
First one,
actually,
I left
during a test match.
Yes, and I wasn't leaving until Duncan Fletcher, the coach, he actually dragged me off the pitch and said, "You're off." I thought I had plenty of time. I kind of casually got myself down to Sheffield, put a bit of petrol in, and got the call saying, "You better hurry up." So I kind of parked at the Sheffield Children's Hospital, kind of ran down the corridors, and there I was waiting in the slips, ready to go.
And was that the right decision, Mike, in hindsight?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I've been very fortunate to be at all 3 of my kids' births, and thankfully that was the case. I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, look,
he's got his timings wrong a little bit, hasn't he, really?
He
should have planned it out a little bit.
Well,
first time he's ever not timed something.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to kind of plan these things with such precision. But anyway, look, let's talk then about the IPL final. It promises to be a brilliant showpiece between Mumbai Indians and Delhi Capitals. So Mumbai, the favourites, Michael, aren't they? Really, the fifth win in 8 years they're going for.
Yeah, I mean, the way I've seen Mumbai in this year's IPL, if they arrive and play, they're almost unbeatable. They've got Rohit Sharma. He had that niggle. It was a weird kind of couple of weeks where Rohit wasn't playing. He wasn't picked for the Aussie tour, and then there was kind of rumours that he was going to go, and then he wasn't going to go, and then he came back and played. Suryakumar Yadav, the number 3, is an incredible player. He's one of these young Indian players that kind of snuck up, and he's as good a player of spin that I've seen in the last 10 years. He's an incredible player of spin. He attacks it with so much ease. Ishan Kishan, they've got Kiran Pollard, Hardik Pandya, then they've got Bumrah, Bolt, James Patterson's been playing. He's been dropped for Nathan Coulter-Nile. They've got Krunal Pandya, Chahar, the leg spinner. They've got pretty much everything covered. But Delhi started so well, and then they had a 4 or 5 game losing streak, and it was touch and go whether they were going to make the qualifications, and then in the last 2 games they've just produced the magic that they had at the start of the tournament. So I think we're in for a tight one, but Mumbai are favourites for me.
Yeah, if they get going, there's no stopping them. But I do like Delhi Capitals, very well led by Ricky Ponting. He knows his stuff, doesn't he? Ricky,
he's good.
And there's that South African sort of connection there as well, isn't there, with Rabada and Norkia. They've been the sort of like leading lights, haven't they? And I like their captain, Shreyas, isn't it?
Yeah, Shreyas, yeah. And they've got they've got Ravi Ashwin, he's itching to mancad someone.
Yeah,
he's itching.
He bowls like he wants to.
I'm just saying that if there's ever a stage for a mancad from Ravi Ashwin, it's the IPL final tomorrow. Watch it.
Yeah, it'll be a great game.
As far as Jasprit Bumrah is concerned, you just mentioned him. Is he the best Tuffers in all formats of the game around the world at the moment?
I think he's got to be. He's just got everything up his sleeve or in his locker, and and that's with slower balls. The way he works out. Batsman in the longer format, he can slot into a line and length and bowl channel. He's got it all. He's got the Yorker. He's got that. But what he has got as well, I think, which people just see the deliveries and how he bowls. He must have the great ability to A, read a game, and then B, just flick a switch to sort of go, right, I'm slotting in here to off stump now, or right, now I need a back of the hand slower ball, or this, that, or the other. A great ability to actually then see what's needed for the situation that he's bowling across all three formats. I mean, a lot of people sort of say that the batsmen have a bit of a task, sort of like, in Test match cricket, getting the head down and playing the longer game and then switching to smashing it around. But that's the same with the bowlers as well, and I think he does that wonderfully well. He's got it all in the locker for me. I think he is the best. He's the best at the moment.
I'm with you, Phil. I see the way that he can adapt to all those three formats.
Yeah.
Pace, accuracy. He can swing a ball. So when the ball's swinging in Test cricket, we know he swings it both ways. In white ball cricket, he hits the pitch hard. If there's anything there, he'll find it. He's got those quick bouncers, slow ball bouncers, wide Yorkers, straight Yorkers. The ability to know when to bowl the right ball at the right time. I've got 4 written down here, kind of the 4 that I put as the best across the formats. Pat Cummins, Jofra Archer, and Trent Boult, Jasprit Bumrah. And I think Trent Boult is the closest to Bumrah. If you look at Boult's record across the 3 formats, it's remarkable. What he delivers, the left arm, swinging it kind of both ways with a bit of pace, nip. It's like a no-thrilled cricketer, Trent Boult. He just gets on with it and just delivers. Goes out there. There's a little bit of a problem with his groin, so let's see if he plays tomorrow. That'll be a massive loss for the Mumbai Indians if Boult's not fit.
And that's what happens with Jasprit Bumrah. He just cruises in. He doesn't even run up, does he? I mean, he's got this sort of like funky action that's just. He always seems to be fit. Always seems to be. He never seems to be tired. He can just go on forever.
There's been a lot of discussion, hasn't there, about Test match batting, that some of the skills are going out because of T20 and this impatience, the need to push on all the time and, having to rebuild it, to build an innings which, England maybe were falling into that trap and that they've kind of turned that back a little bit with people like Dom Sibley and Zach Crawley. But would you say in some ways, actually, T20, the best T20 bowlers can really... they can add something to their Test match game as well if they play across both formats, just because of that need to be tight.
Yes, without doubt. I think the bowlers, it doesn't hurt as much as a batsman, so to speak. Yes, so I think you're spot on.
Yeah, I think what you're finding, I mean, Bumrah, Boult, Archer, Cummins, these high class bowlers that can play all 3 formats, what they do is they improve. Year in, year out, they bring different deliveries, different kind of angles, different skill sets. They don't just sit still. I think the one thing that happens in T20 cricket, either as a batsman or as a bowler, if you just sit still, the opposing players will find out because they've got so much data and information, and they've got so much video technology that gives the batsman the indication of a certain slower ball that you're going to bowl if you're kind of doing it the same way, ball after ball. So these bowlers, they just must bring something slightly different all the time, that just keep asking the batsman a new question because, the consistency. When you think T20 cricket, I think if you have a good game as a bowler, 2 in 4, 50%, you'd be delighted with that. Well, I reckon Bumrah's probably 3 out of 4. He's 75% of the time. That he's going to deliver. He's getting figures of 4 for 14 in T20 cricket. I mean, it's remarkable stuff.
Yeah. And to average around 6 and over when you're bowling
incredible
at the top of the innings and at the death as well.
Yeah, no, incredible. I mean, stats like that. That's what I was saying. It's the upstairs. It's the old noggin. The old noggin. He must have a bit of the old brain power working away there as well. He's just not steaming and get it down the other end and got a slower ball up his sleeve and everything. He must look at batsmen, look at situations, and then adapt every single time, because otherwise you just wouldn't be able to get them kind of stats.
What was your noggin like when you were bowling?
Well, it was something they used to call me Daisy. Some days he does, and some days he doesn't.
Apparently, Chris Jordan said about Bumrah that the thing about him is that he can understand conditions brilliantly.
There you go.
That he can assess it really straight away what the ball's going to do on a particular day.
Yeah, but then also very good, and this is what you have to have as a spinner as well. But also he's taken that a little bit further into seam bowling as well. You have to assess the player that you're bowling against, know where his strengths are, know where to keep it out of his areas, know what length he struggles with. You've got to keep a mental record of all these players, and that's what you do as a bowler. Once you've played against them, you kind of got like a little filing system in the back of your noggin, and you just know what their strengths and weaknesses are, where they sort of what their go-to shots are under pressure, and you just try to sort of keep it away from him. So you must have a great old computer up there as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Phil, because there aren't many bowlers that are captains in any kind of format of the game. But I reckon the best bowlers in the world have got incredible cricket brains.
Yeah.
Because they just know which balls to bowl at the right time. They can assess the pitch quickly. Again, these are what captains do. They assess the conditions very sharply, and they can work their angles out because they've kind of seen something in the pitch very quickly. But all these great bowlers that we're talking about, they've got great cricket brains as well. They're always a kind of a ball ahead of the batsman. We always talk about batsmen having to be a ball ahead of the bowler. Well, I think all these bowlers have just got their step ahead of the batsman when they're bowling. Yeah,
you've got to be able to compile an over as a bowler. You can't just sort of run up there and go, right, first ball this pace, second ball off pace, this one slower ball, this one, that one. You've got to adapt to your over. You've got to build an over, and that's what he does wonderfully well.
I was reading that the Yorker, which, is seen as a great weapon for a bowler, it's not really a great weapon in the IPL now because the batsmen are so good at just, if you get it just a tiny margin out, it becomes a full toss.
He's very good at it, though. He still gets it right up, and I think that's something to do with his action as well. He just seems to have that great trajectory with that sort of like straight arm sort of whirl that he does. That he seems to sort of like skim it to the batsman, and he's 7 out of 10. He's bowling great Yorkers, but I know what you mean that it's pressure, isn't it? It's pressure. I mean, some of these bowlers under pressure are missing it by yards.
They go for it. They go for it, but they also have other options. It's I guess in our time it was like go to the Yorker, and I think there's times in this modern game that you look at, come on, you've got to get the Yorker, and it's still, if delivered right, the hardest ball to hit. But because most of these batsmen have the ramp and the flicks and the tricks, as you say, Phil, the bowler's under that much pressure to get it absolutely spot on, and if they miss it by an inch or so, they know they're going to travel. But they do have other alternatives. It's the wider Yorker, and then they come to a straight Yorker. They've got this kind of cutter, kind of slower ball Yorker that they bowl. Then they've got the bouncer, the slower ball bouncers. They'll try and protect one side of the ground and make sure that the batsman, if there is a bigger side, get the batter hitting towards that bigger side. So, look, there's so many different... I sometimes watch T20 cricket, and I've watched this IPL. I think it's overcomplicated. I think some teams have too much information and they overcomplicate the game rather than going, look, just keep it simple. With the new ball, try and whack the top of off stump as hard as you possibly can. And when you get towards the end of an innings, bowl a few Yorkers, bowl a few cutters, and you know what, on your day, it'll work. When the batsmen have their day, you get hit around a bit, but just keep it a bit more simple.
And he also looks very, very cool under pressure. And that's another thing. You can be the best bowler in the world when things are going your way, but when things aren't going his way, he can just sit back, assess situations, and be cool under pressure.
Talking about looking cool under pressure and keeping it simple, what about Chris Gayle? He has made history this week. He hit his 1,000th six
a lot of sixes
in T20s while playing for Kings 11. So let me give you a bit of context on those numbers. That's 300 more sixes than Kieran Pollard in second place, 500 more than Brendan McCullum, who is third in the all-time list. If you take all the sixes across all the formats hit by MS Dhoni, Yuvraj Singh and Virat Kohli combined, you've still got fewer sixes than Chris Gayle has hit in T20s. And he's hit more sixes than any international team in T20s.
It's almost like his stock shot. He doesn't actually look to sort of not hit sixes. Some people, they look to sort of place it around a little bit and then get into the groove and start hitting sixes. His first thought is, can I hit this ball for six? And then, a lot of the times he does. I've seen him play some great knocks. I saw him at the Oval. I was doing some commentary. He hit it out of the Oval about 4 times. It was just bouncing down Kennington Road. I've never sort of seen the ball travel so far. And if it's And if I wouldn't have fancied bowling him. A little left arm spinner to him, you would be under pressure because you just think, where's the length that he can not hit a six from? Anything short, back foot gone. Anything good length, he can just hit through the length, power it through. And he's got so much power, great big bat. The grounds aren't big enough for him, even at 41.
I know. I mean, it's remarkable, isn't it, that he's 41, still delivering. I actually think over the last, I don't think we've given him enough credit for how great a player he is. Because it's Chris Gayle and he's a bit jovial. He's always kind of laughing and smiling. His Instagram and his Twitter's a bit of fun. I don't think we've actually analysed and sat back and realised this fella is an incredible batsman. You know, look at his record in Test cricket. Averages over 40. He got 300. 2 triple centuries. He played 100 Test matches. And we all talk of him, he's just a white ball player. He is an incredible batsman that I don't think, because of who he is and what he's brought, and he's brought a bit of controversy over the time, I don't think we've kind of, as pundits, just gone, do you know what, we're actually in the presence of greatness with the way that he's delivered. I don't think I've seen anyone strike a cricket ball as consistently well as Chris Gayle. No,
he's miss-hitting sixes, miss-hits them, absolutely miss-hits them. He cloths them for six, you know what I mean? He does.
He makes me feel very old. I remember playing against Chris Gayle. He used to stroll out to open the bat, and in Test match, I think it was in 2003 and 4, I think it was over in the Caribbean. And Hoggy would try and swing it back into the pads, and in the first over the game, he'd be whacking it straight back over Hoggy's head. He'd just sit back tricky. And launch it over mid-on. I mean, he's had an incredible career, and he says he's carrying on. He's there for another go. He wants to play again. I mean, the IPL is going to be just a few months' time. In April, May, I believe it's going to be in the UAE once again. So it looks like he's having a bit of a party at the minute, Chris, because I've seen him on Instagram and he's on the back of boats. He's spraying champagne. It's obviously he's not in any lockdown wherever he is.
No, he sort of actually. Well, he is in a funny sort of way, Mr. 2020, isn't he?
Yeah.
He was the sort of the main man at the start of T20. You know that everyone wanted. This is how you're going to go about it, and just start smashing sixes out the thing. So I think he's brought a hell of a lot to T20 and really sort of kicked it off, and it's a magnificent achievement.
I reckon Dhoni and Chris Gayle are the two that spring to mind. You say T20 cricket, Chris Gayle, MS Dhoni.
Godfathers,
the two that really kind of just
T20.
They are. They just they've been from the start, and they've pretty much been in every IPL and have produced magic and the unbelievable as well. I mean, the unbelievable performances that you've seen from those two players has been remarkable over the years.
Well, we haven't done a player like Chris Gayle because, you wouldn't tell a young player to model yourself necessarily on not his six hitting, but his fielding. For example, he's running between the wickets. Not that he has to run between the wickets.
Well, he has to hit sixes. He has to hit sixes because he can't actually run because he's getting on a little bit now, isn't he? So I think you're right. I think he's probably the last of a little bit of the old school. But I mean, he was a decent fielder. He bowled, of course, when he was a youngster as well. Was a decent off spinner, and was a good pair of hands and a good fielder. But with a few injuries and you keep swinging from the bootstraps. You're going to go in the back a bit, aren't you? And
I don't see anyone being Chris Gayle. I mean, I guess the closest, I would say Nicholas Pooran, left-hander from the West Indies. Stokesy, Pooran, but I'm talking like just a Stokes is a player, isn't he? He bats and plays. I think Pooran's a striker. Hetmeyer, he can launch it as well, but there's never going to be another Chris Gayle.
No universe boss.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Global boss.
In the meantime, Henry Moran, just tell us about the other things that you were doing today, because you were covering what. So this is the female equivalent to the IPL.
It is, sort of, and they're quite at pains to say that it isn't that. It's called the IPL Women's T20 Challenge, and we saw the final of that today. The Trailblazers beating the Supernovas in the final by 16 runs. And the team names may not sound that familiar because they're not linked to any of the City franchises that we're used to in the men's tournament. Instead, they're three teams made up of sort of India internationals and stars from around the world game. So you've got England's Danny Wyatt and Sophie Eccleston playing in it, and some of the big-name players from South Africa, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and elsewhere. And this mini tournament has been sort of crammed into 5 days, with each team playing each other once before a final. And none of them are linked to any cities, none are linked to the other franchises, and it sort of feels like it's a holding tournament ahead of what in future will be a fully fledged Indian Premier League competition. We did see in the final, though, one of the great bits of fielding you will ever see. I've stuck it on my Twitter feed. It is from Natakan Chantum, Thailand international, It is boundary fielding, the like of which I have never seen in my life. It is unbelievable.
Henry,
Yeah,
can I? Has she
How
got
did
up
she
yet?
not break
'Cause
her
she's-
shoulder?
Yeah.
It's sort of, it's as if somebody has said, you're not allowed to get the ball with your hand, you've got to do a cartwheel first, stop it with your face, and then haul it back in. It is it's unbelievable. And she's tweeted, Alex Hartley, Test match special commentator, said that's going to hurt in the morning on social media, and Chanton replied with, it's already hurting in the evening, to be fair. And it is one of them, it's a really brutal bit of fielding, but it's outstanding.
And Sophie Eccleston's the champ.
Yeah.
She's got a trophy.
Yeah, superb. Yeah, she is. She's part of the Trailblazers side. And, you forget that she's still so young. In her early 20s, she's the number one T20 bowler in the world. She took 5 wickets across the 3 matches, an economy rate of 11. And so, economy rate of just under 5 and an average of 11, I should say. And she was just a class above what else we saw in the tournament in terms of the bowlers. She's just a real talent. And one of those players that England have to just cherish, look after, because she's the sort of player that could get into any side in the world. And when you go and play Australia in the Ashes series next time they do, or the World Cup, whenever that next is, then she's the sort of player that could win you a tournament. So another good few days for her, and her reputation continues to build.
Henry, magnificent stuff. Thank you very much indeed.
Cheers, mate.
Henry Moran. WBBL commentary doubleheader tomorrow on 5 Live Sports Extra and BBC Sounds for you. Melbourne Stars against Adelaide Strikers is at 3:30 in the morning before Melbourne Renegades versus Hobart Hurricanes, which starts at 8 a.m. and that features the England duo Catherine Brunt and Nat Siver.
Tuffers and Vaughan's Cricket Show.
On 5 Live.